Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming back to campus a two-time alumnus who is creating a company that helps people connect with their loved ones in need, and in the process is creating dozens of well-paying jobs. We welcome back the winner of the 2012 Minnesota Cup competition, an event founded by our alumni and organized by the Home Center that has become the largest statewide new venture competition in the country. And perhaps most importantly, we welcome back a fearless female entrepreneur who serves as an inspirational role model to our students and recent graduates, many of them who are here in attendance today. I often comment that Minnesota is a great place to start a business, largely due to the tremendous support available from the entrepreneurial business community. That is particularly true of the support provided to the too few female entrepreneurs. Before we start the program, I wanted to recognize very quickly a few of the incredible supporters of female entrepreneurship in the Twin Cities who are with us today. From our Home Center Advisory Board, we have both Judy Corson and Joy Lindsay. From the Entrepreneurship and Residence Program, we have Linda Hall. And from the business community, and apologies if I'm skipping over a few people, but I know from the broader business community here, we have a number of folks including Leslie Fracon, Lee Jones, Ruth Lane, Jeannie Voigt, and Kay O'Leary, and many others who have inspired and mentored many of the emerging entrepreneurs through the Minnesota Cup and other programs. So please join me in thanking these remarkable women. To improve Minnesota's entrepreneurial business climate, we need to inspire and educate the entire next generation of entrepreneurs. The Home Center is proud of the fact that the majority of our entrepreneurship classes last year were taught by female instructors, and that we purposefully developed programs to encourage and support female student entrepreneurs. We are also excited to announce that with the assistance from a number of those leaders we just mentioned, we will be adding a new event in 2014 designed specifically to support the thousands of female entrepreneurs who have participated in the Minnesota Cup over the past 9 years. Before I welcome Julie to the podium, I want to first thank the organizations that make First Tuesday possible. First, as always, thanks to Wells Fargo, our presenting sponsor. Thank you to Twin Cities Business, our longtime promotional partner and media sponsor. And thanks to our supporting partners, the McNamara Alumni Center and D'Amico Catering. Our featured guest today is Julie Gilbert Newrai, founder and CEO of both Wolf Means Business and PreciouStatus, the 2012 Minnesota Cup Grand Prize winner. Julie's recent honors include being named the 2013 Executive Healthcare Trust Innovator of the Year, recipient of the 2013 Association for Corporate Growth Bold Entrepreneur Award, the 2010 Entrepreneur of the Year by Huffington Post. She is a frequent speaker at TED events and has recently become a fixture of the local and national media, having been profiled in Time Magazine, Harvard Business Review, Business Week, Oprah Magazine, the New York Times, among others. Julie continues to run her prior company, Wolf Means Business, which she developed within Best Buy as a marketing and innovation platform to drive revenue growth via marketing to women consumers. Wolf clients include Nintendo, Motorola, Major League Baseball, and Target, and now PreciouStatus, where she is utilizing the same proven techniques to develop her latest venture. Prior to going on her own with Wolf, Julie had a 20-plus year career as a senior business executive at both Best Buy and Deloitte, where she learned how to scale new business ventures, creating and launching 7 new businesses, running P&Ls of more than $5 billion, and creating more than $11 billion in incremental revenues. She has served on the board of Acupera, the Harvard Kennedy School's Women Leadership Board, and the White House Project. Based upon Julie's achievements to date, you can guess how incredibly proud we are that she received both her MBA and her undergraduate degree from the Carlson School of Management. So without any further delay, it is my distinct pleasure to give you my good friend, Julie Gilbert Newrai, who will speak on the topic of growth creation in the wild.
If you think about the need that humans have to protect their families, to care for their families, this gets at the very heart of our genes and our biological science.
I think as a mother myself, picking up children from daycare, it would have been fantastic to know how their day had gone before I got to the center. And I think it's a winning proposition.
I think this technology will make a difference in helping parents become partners with a teacher. I think it'll improve education. I think it's a game changer.
Thank you. So thanks for coming and spending some time with us here today. I'm very excited to not only be here because I'm incredibly grateful to this school, but I'm also incredibly grateful for the people in this community and also those who have come so far to support the efforts that we're doing here today. My fundamental belief, and then I'll get to a bit of the journey, and hope that you can tap your journey with me as you think about what has it taken to get you to sit in these seats that you're sitting in today. And what are the leadership traits that you've brought to the table to build others? And what are the traits that others have brought to build you? Because at the fundamental core of who I am, and my ultimate in the middle of the night, what gets me up every single day, to fight the fires and go through what ultimately is, frankly, a lot of really discouraging moments as an entrepreneur, is my mission. And my mission is clear. My mission is that every single person has a voice, and every single voice is unique. And our role as leaders is actually not, unfortunately, what ends up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, which is to promote our own agenda. Our mission as leaders is to mobilize those voices and to inspire them one by one to believe in themselves. Because if you can inspire one by one each person to believe in themselves, just like someone inspired you to believe in yourself, then what you can accomplish as an individual, but more importantly as a combined total, is insurmountable in terms of what anyone could write up in a case study. And the reason I fundamentally believe that is where I came from. And I'll tell you that I've gotten a lot of coaching in my career, especially as an executive, to never tell people where I'm from. But today I'm going to tell you exactly where I'm from. And I actually, to be honest, I never listened to them anyway. But this is exactly where I'm from. It's Draper, South Dakota. It's a town in the middle of South Dakota. And as you can see, it's fairly small, and if I had a pointer that you could see, you would actually probably chuckle even more because this was a huge event happening in our town that day, and that's why there's so many cars there. But the fundamental reason I believe as I do is actually in this town, because this is all I knew for 15 years. And as you can see for miles and miles. And this town, and we've done this on sort of family gatherings, we've added up the names of the people that lived in this town, because the population sign actually says 123 people. And sad to say, it's a complete lie. Because we can only come up with about 79 people on paper, and the rest must be stray dogs and cats, because we can't figure out how they come up with 123. But the point of that is very powerful in terms of what that does to a human being growing up in a place that is very isolated. There were no major cities within a couple hundred miles. And major city would have been Sioux Falls. And the other component to this is there was really no hierarchy in this town. Because when you only have 80 people in a town, and they all do different things for a living, and they all have different talents, the only way you win is if every single person engages. And they engage not based on some made-up hierarchy of some made-up job titles, but you have to get them to engage on what they instinctively get passion around. And what that looks like for a parade, which could just as easily be a corporate strategy, is that you have to tap them individually and say, oh, Johnny's got the horses and he loves horses, so guess what, let's put a horse in the parade, and let's let Johnny ride the horse. And you got Pete, who plays the violin. Great, we need a violin player in the parade. And you've got Sanborn with the fire truck, so guess what, we'll put a fire truck in the parade. And if you look closely, you'll see that there's a green car coming down the middle of Main Street, because this was a parade. And what ends up happening is that you get so many people, meaning the whole town, that is actually a part of the strategy, regardless of title, regardless of how much land they own or don't own, regardless of what their official title is in the family or how long they've been there, how much money they have in the bank. Everyone is in the parade, authentically doing what they love to do. And so what happens is you have the best parade you could ever have for miles and miles and miles. Better than actually a parade in Sioux Falls, where there's been some big committee with a hierarchy that's officially assigned duties to people that mean nothing. So when you ask me what I believe in and what drives me is mobilizing human beings to a mission that matters. And the reason the mission matters is because it's about human beings and connection. And it's about goodness. And it's about bringing people together. Because in our town, if you didn't bring people together, there was nothing to do, except go to the dump and try to find some new project to work on. This is the fundamental reason that I believe that our whole mission in life, regardless of what we do, is to look deep in the eyes of the human beings that come into your path and inspire them to believe in themselves. And then they will have the fortitude to actually go on the mission that they're meant to go on. And this is me. This is me at about the age of 3, and a couple things I'll point out is you can see, I think, that I'm highly uncomfortable in this dress. And the reason I'm highly uncomfortable is that I think, as I can recall, it's the only dress I actually remember wearing, because all of my clothes were hand-me-down boy clothes. Because I had an older brother and a whole bunch of cousins, and so I was standing like, I hope I don't get anything on this because my mom will kill me. And my mom actually handmade this dress for me. I was in some kind of a style show or something, which was highly uncomfortable for me as well. And the other piece to this that I would mention that's a bit deeper is perhaps it was growing up in this small town. Perhaps it was being the only daughter of 2 entrepreneurial parents, which was not the norm in this small town. In fact, most people owned land. Most people had cattle. We were entrepreneurs in the town. We brought to them what they needed to make their businesses work. Is that I actually never ever felt like I was breathing the air that made me comfortable. And I got to a point in my life, frankly, now that I've looked back, that I began to be comfortable being very uncomfortable. Because the air that I was breathing, regardless of the place I worked, really wasn't my natural air to breathe. And I always, therefore, was trying to prove that I just wanted to be valued, like I saw my brothers be valued, like I saw the guys in my basketball team be valued. I just wanted to be respected, and respected for my talents, equally respected. Now, in case you don't know where South Dakota is, which I think this crowd's quite educated on that, but many places don't know, the South Dakota is an amazing place, and it has the Badlands National Park, which you can see here. Maybe this looks familiar. Yes. And this, too, was an amazing work of art by Gutzon Borglum, who was an entrepreneur, who had a vision and a belief, and was able to mobilize those voices that had skills, that were willing to scale this crazy mountain and chip away with dynamite and ladders and ropes in the 1930s and 40s. And again, for those of you, maybe this will hit a note. This is actually Dances with Wolves, which usually hits a chord. This was actually filmed. This is when he's going to the outpost. This was filmed about 15 miles from my hometown, which gives you a glimpse without the big city lights that I just showed you of what my horizon exactly looked like. And this is my dog, Duke. He was an amazing dog. And we're riding in this 1962 Scout, which had the gear shifter that when you shift, it actually grinds. Anyone know what a gear shift? And it's a young audience. I mean, I didn't expect everyone to get it. Isn't the dog, he's just amazing, right? Oh yeah, that's my brother in the front seat. I probably should mention that. My older brother, and we're actually at work here. Our parents believed in engaging the children in as much work as possible as soon as they could pretty much walk, which I'm grateful for today, but yes, we were the victims of child labor laws and egregious behavior on that. And you can't see my face, but my brother is looking like, hey, it's a great time to take a picture. He's actually pinching me so hard on my rib cage that I had a black and blue mark. But that's just what brothers do. It set me up for corporate America. It was good training. I thank him for it now. And this is my other brother. And I just put this in because I didn't think you'd really believe me based on all of the big city lights and the cars in the main street that, yes, indeed, our town sign does say 123. And that's my little brother, who was actually not too bad on me, but interesting to note, he was run over a riding lawnmower at the age of 4-ish. Again, no judgment on my parents putting our 4-year-old on a riding lawnmower, but he's now very high up and leading design at Toro. So there you have it. And these two amazing human beings are my parents. And I have to say, they gave me everything. They gave me 3 very valuable things. 1, you've got to believe in your dreams. Because everybody's going to tell you that everything that you're thinking is garbage, and it's never going to work. And the only way that you're going to figure out if they're really right is based on how much work you're willing to put into making that dream come alive. So they gave me the gift of belief, and they gave me the gift, frankly, of an incredible work ethic. And not talking to me at the kitchen table, but the both of them were both co-CEOs of their businesses. And they were out the door at 5 a.m., and they didn't get home until sometimes 10 or 11 at night. And they showed me how you can take a dream in a place as isolated as that, when no one believes. And you can create not only a business, but what I didn't show you on there is they actually had the bulk oil, big gas tanks that we serve the farmers with. They built a business out on I-90. And when I was 6 years old, they taught me about risk. And I didn't realize it until I was probably maybe about 5-6 years ago. They built this huge gas station with a restaurant and a place where you could work on cars and all of that, big retail. And it was so big, everyone laughed. Because it was in the middle of this tiny town, and it was bigger than our auditorium by a lot. And it was 2 stories. There were no 2-story anythings in my town. And they took us out there, and I can still smell the cement as a 6-year-old. And they took my brothers and I, and they took masking tape. And on the 2nd level, it wasn't finished, but they had us mark off rooms in that 2nd floor with masking tape. And we thought it was the best thing ever, because this was going to be our new fort. And we were going to play and do whatever. But do you know why they were doing that? They had us pick our bedrooms. They showed us where the kitchen was, where the bathroom would be. Because if they lost their house, this was going to be our home. That's pretty amazing. The other thing they taught me, and my mom still nags at me day in and day out, is education. Education, education, education. I got my undergrad at the University of Minnesota in accounting in 1993. And the day before I graduated, my mom said to me, "What's next?" I'm like, "Mom, it's my graduation." She said, "Exactly, what's next?" But I got a job. I'm going to Deloitte. And so about maybe a week or so later, I was back here at night working on my master's in business taxation. And I got about 90% of the way through that. And my mom was already getting the cake ready for the graduation and the whole thing. And I didn't want to tell her because it's not a good thing to say, but I didn't want master's in business taxation on my resume because somehow I thought that I'd never get out of being a tax return person. And there's no harm, no foul in that. It's just not my core talent. And so I switched gears, and I started going to my MBA at night, here, while I was working nonstop, 80-plus hours a week, flying between here and New York City, doing crazy stuff. And all of a sudden, it's time for what could be graduation, and my mom's like, "The cake's in the freezer." "Mom, there's been a slight adjustment in the plan." And the good news is, as long as I was getting my MBA, that was good. And I said to my mom one time, I'm exhausted. I have no social life. I'm in school, and when I'm not in school, I'm working nonstop. There's a reason you have no grandchildren. And so she said, "Well, why don't you get your husband to join the MBA program too?" As if something magical would happen in a case study there. And at the end of the day, I said to her, "Mom, why are you so insistent?" And she got tears in her eyes, and she said, "Because I never had it. I never had it. You have the opportunity, and you need to seize the moment, because this is what's going to differentiate you from anyone else for that next job. When you're up against a job with a guy who's golfing at the golf course at the country club with the president, and he has much less education, and you've stacked up 10 times the work, this will be the only thing that pushes you over the top for them to choose you. Because if nothing else, they have no choice. Because you have more education." And the other thing she said to me is, at the end of the day, if you ever lose your job and you have to find something else, your education is the only thing they can't take from you. They can take your spirit if you let them. They can lay you off, which will, for a period of time is going to break your heart. And you're going to question your value, and can you really do something else again? But at the end of the day, they can't take your education. And then she looked at me with that pointed finger and she said, "Go get more education." And so I thank them for that. And the last thing they taught me was about values. How do you treat people? How do you want to be treated? There's an old saying that goes something like this: you never forget how someone made you feel, even though you may have forgotten what they said. And usually the most heart-tugging thing that's hard for you, and the thing that you can't forget, is when you go to some event, and we've all had it happen, unfortunately, and someone comes up to you, and maybe you've even looked forward to meeting this person because they've got some credentials or there's some superstar in your mind, and you actually make your way up there, and it takes you a lot to get up your chair and go, I'm gonna go meet this person. And you go up there and you shake their hand, and instead of looking you in the eye, they're looking over you at someone else they'd much rather talk to. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you never forget that. And it dampens your spirit. And if things like that continue to happen to you over time, little by little, you want to try out for some, team at work, and it's going to be a real good thing for your career, and so you put your name in the hat, and you're kind of listening to the tea leaves on, what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, the list comes out, and it's posted. And everyone's talking about it. And you go up there and your name's not there. And you see the names that are there, and you can't really understand why, except they happen to be golfing or out yacht clubbing or with 2 levels above you, or they happen to live in the same neighborhood. And the ironic thing about being a woman in this space is that we, unlike the guys, we actually don't plan to live in the same neighborhood as the president because we don't want him seeing us at the grocery store with no makeup. So we move across town to a place where we can breathe. And yet, unfortunately, when we do stuff like that, we're out of the network. We're out of the point of view of the mind of that next job and the next job after that. And we're not golfing together, and we're not out sailing together at Wayzata. And therefore, we don't build that deep level of trust. So the next time that board is created, we're nowhere in the thought process because we moved all the way across town to avoid somebody in the store without makeup. And I know it's much deeper than that, but there's some fundamental pieces to our culture that keep it real interesting. Being in business. And my parents taught me that no matter what you do, Julie, follow your values. Treat people with respect. Look them in the eye. Engage them. Because they'll never forget what you did for them. Even if you didn't say a thing to them, they'll never forget what it felt like when you looked them in the eye and they knew that you believed in them. They'll never forget. To innovate, and this is my point of view, so I believe it's to light the fires of your soul. Take a stand in a space most people completely discount. Open your most vulnerable self and keep going in the midst of near constant rejection, humiliation, and isolation. Have you ever come up with a new idea at work or outside, and you somehow feel safe enough to tell your best friend? And instead of them going, that's interesting, they go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And so you decide, why not? I'll just keep doing it. And so you keep running into more and more people, and they all keep telling you it's the dumbest thing that you've ever heard. But there's a fire in your soul and an instinctual component that you can't let it die. Because you know that at the fundamental end of the day, people need connection. They need joint support. They just want to be valued. And so you keep going and you keep going in the middle of the night, and it gets pretty dark in the middle of the night. I mean, I will tell you in the last year, there's been about, I don't know how many, I can't even count. There's been a whole lot of nights that I've not only questioned if I ever could do another day again, but I've questioned why I even got in the journey in the first place. And maybe I should have just listened to all those voices who told me I was stupid to begin with. You know those voices in your head that tell you about how dumb you are all the time? That they're so loud, and they get louder at 2 in the morning. And somehow at 2 in the morning you can't sleep, and you're sitting there staring out the window and wondering why you were even put on the planet if you're so worthless. If you bring such little value to the people around you and to the planet that you're in, the community that you're in. And I don't think that's just me at 2 in the morning. I really don't. But I will tell you it feels like it's just me, just like it probably feels like it's just you. And so why do you keep going? Why do you get up the next day and go, and we're doing it again? I think that most people that are entrepreneurs, the reason that they innovate, there's actually an article out I just saw. Richard Branson was talking about entrepreneurship. And he said, anyone who says that entrepreneurs get in it for the money is crazy. Is crazy. And he's right, because why would you pick something that you're going to get paid nothing for a long time? And you go to Christmas parties and your family, yes, your brothers are there, and they're like, what are you working on now? With that raised eyebrow, like, oh my God. Yeah, and people don't exactly invite you to parties anymore because they think you might be off on the edge a little too much again. Is it just me that's getting this, or? The reason that you innovate, I believe, most entrepreneurs, and if we did a whiteboard and case study and the whole thing, I think we'd come up with a lot of examples is you're doing it to alleviate pain. You're trying to make sure that no one else on the planet ever goes through the pain that you went through in the first place that created what you want to solve for. You're doing it to bring good into the world. And selfishly, at the highest level, I think we could probably argue, if there's some psychologists in here, please speak up. Not really, but I think the reason that you do it is because the only way that you can get the vessel of pain to stop hurting so much in the middle of the night is because you want to solve it for everyone else. You never want anyone else to get to a place of feeling so alone and so isolated that you question your worth. I think that's why you do it. Because if it weren't for that, if it were for some glamour or something else, you would never keep going. You never would. You'd give it all up and quit and go get some easy peasy job somewhere. And your relatives would be like, she's coming to the light now, I think. I think the only cure for isolation, the self-doubt, and the loud voices of despair is that you build yourself a values-based network. You find people who have values, who know how to treat people with the same kind of respect that you start out every day trying to do with yourself. Not the corrupt ones. We've all dealt with plenty of them. I've had my fill of corrupt ones. The flesh that smells, you can feel it when you walk in the room, that they're more self-absorbed with themselves and their bank account than they are with ever doing 1 ounce of good for anyone. And the irony of all of this, because I'm a CPA, so I know numbers. The irony is, if you start out building any business or any divisional restructuring with the number you have to hit and force it on the people, what happens? It's a really disgusting day. Because you can do that for a day or 3 months, but you know what? Pretty soon, are you going to get the best talent? No, because no one wants to be treated like that. And are people going to do it because they're instinctually inspired by the mission that you put on the table because it's going to do good for humanity? No. It's artificial. It's made up. And yet the complete paradox to that, and I've tested it in corporate America, and it works, is if instead you put a mission out that is about goodness and about humanity and about us really creating brand new strategies for the company that lets everyone bring their unique identity to the table and get your voices heard. What happens? I'll give you a visual of what happens. If you imagine a huge granite slate that's so heavy no one can move it, and you've got a CEO that puts, let's just say he drills a hole in it and puts a big chain through it, and he's going to try to pull this thing towards some financial outcome. And he's going to force the people to push it. Force. Because if they don't, they're afraid they'll lose their jobs. Am I making this up? Unfortunately, I'm not. Instead, I want you to come over here with me and imagine that you put a mission out that is actually at a higher level of everyone being able to fulfill their mission in life. But it connects to the strategy of the company that it was meant to do. And oh, by the way, if we do fulfill this, what do the financials look like? I'll tell you what they look like. Instead of this, they look like this. And what happens to that granite slate is you've got little ants that are pushing it like 3 because they happen to be indebted to the CEO because they're afraid that if they don't, he'll tell on them based on some indiscretion that he talked them into in the first place. And you get nowhere. But instead, if you try this route over here, and you empower the people, and you inspire them to believe in themselves and to connect to the mission, and they all know the numbers, but the numbers are not the goal. They're the outcome. All the ants get underneath the granite, and it's irregardless what hierarchy they are. And frankly, you'll have ants under the granite that aren't even working for the company, called your customer base. Because everyone just wants to be valued. And they start moving the granite, and there's thousands of them, and thousands, and pretty soon more come because we're human and we tell people. And all of a sudden, the granite is not just moving, but it is sliding at record speed. And the outcomes that you're able to achieve and go to the bank with are 10 times anything that could have been achieved before. And frankly, this company over here will fail to exist because you can't lead. That is not leadership. The eyes of wolf. The eyes of wolf. Now, irregardless of anything you know about my personal belief about wolves, do you ever forget those eyes up there? They're piercing. They're intense, and they're looking right at you. And you know when you've been in the moment with some human being that has engaged you for 3 seconds in that way, you feel different. You feel very different. And you feel different because their energy, assuming they're a values-based leader, which they will, because a non-values-based leader actually won't engage you for that long through the eyes, because deep down they're terrified that you're going to see the ugliness that sits in their soul. It's a point of view, but I've tried it. And when you're intensely in that moment of someone looking deep in your soul, do you not feel that connection of power and energy and inspiration, and we can do it together, even if you've never met this person before? Do you not remember their face and their eyes? And at 2 a.m, the next time you can't sleep and you're questioning whether you can even get up and do it again, what gets you up doing it again? The eyes. Early on in this journey, I was at Radio del Sol. We were in our first pilot of the technology. And I was literally going, should we do this, should we not? I had all of our own personal money in this thing. I'd taken my wedding ring and I'd hawked it and put the money in the business. I did. He supported me fully. I told him I'd get a much better ROIC on this thing. And a woman came up to me. I was literally living at Radio del Sol, downtown Minneapolis, and a woman came up to me completely in tears. I'll never forget her eyes. And I thought something had happened because she was crying. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "You just don't get it, Julie." I said, "What?" She said, "Are you the PreciouStatus person?" I said, "Yes." She said, "My husband is deployed in Afghanistan, and he's getting updates on our children around the clock. Do you know what that's like when we only get to talk to him like once every 2 to 3 weeks for a very short window of time, and now he's getting updates on our children?" And it was that moment that I said to myself, whenever I want to quit this journey, I have responsibility to never quit. Because her eyes, she just put me in a position, for better or for worse, that I have to drive this thing out to make sure every woman who's got someone deployed overseas, or every man who's got his wife deployed overseas, gets the connection with their family. And they don't lose 10 years of deployment as their children grow up. There has to be an easier way. This picture is my husband and my baby son, just not long after his surgery, actually. And this is where I get to this place of pain in your life. When things happen to you and you can't explain them, and you're on such a trajectory to make things happen in your career, and all of a sudden you're in the hospital room and you're there for 12 hours a day watching a motionless body and listening to the beep and just hoping that the beep goes again and again and again. The final thing I wanted to leave with you is faith. You could do all this stuff. I couldn't do all this stuff if I wasn't grounded in faith. My faith in the darkest of hours is what pushes me to the next and the next and the next. And I'm a Christian, and I'm proud to say it, that in the darkest moments of my life, when I couldn't understand why all this stuff was happening to me, I'd think of this: be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you, and he will not forsake you. And in the toughest moments, you get pretty mad at this God of ours. Because why in the world did you have to put me through this? Haven't I been through enough? I've learned, okay, it's all good, we're back on track. And then you get thrown another one out of left field. 8-week-old child And he comes home from a business trip and we think he has the flu. And I'm panicked mother. First mom, old and exhausted anyway. So I quarantine the both of them, and I'm going from room to room and doing a full scrub in the middle because I can't have the baby get the flu. And this goes on for day and night, and all of a sudden he's getting worse and worse, and all of a sudden he's flat and he can't open his eyes or he'll start vomiting uncontrollably. To the point that I have to call 911 and take him to the emergency room because he can't walk. And then they misdiagnose it as being vertigo and send us home after refilling his fluids. And so we go through the whole thing again, and I'm calling everyone I can think of in my network that may have something to do with the medical community, because instinctually I'm like, I've never had vertigo, but he is getting worse and worse and worse. And finally I say to myself, and I load up our little baby son, and I head over to Target to get some Pedialyte to give to him, because I'm like, if he doesn't drink something and keep it down, we're going to be going to the hospital again. And I say to myself, if we come back and he gets sick again, we have to go, because he's not going to make it. And he did make it, thanks to God. Literally thanks to God. I think I had everybody in 52 countries praying for my husband at some point in time to survive. And PreciouStatus was born. And I put this in just because when you're building a new business, this is not you and you're out doing all this stuff, but it's a family affair. And so this is my little son, and just so you know that I wasn't like being a bad mom, because he's staring at my keyboard, my fingers typing. But you can see he's actually quite engaged in the financials of the business as well. My final thought is, you can be an entrepreneur and you can have all these great ideas and what you should do here and there and whatever. And it's all great and sounds good on paper and all this. But at the end of the day, and this is why I gave to you in your bag, my real point of view about how this really happens, it actually has nothing to do with me. It literally has nothing to do with me. The very course of whether a business or an idea is going to take any legs, because I only have two, and I can't really move much, is going to be the hummingbirds that come along the journey with you. The people that you can inspire to find their journey and write themselves into the story with you. Now, I don't know if you know much about hummingbirds, but if you don't, I'll give you a quick overview. If you've ever seen a hummingbird, you're lucky, because they're moving at such a speed you can barely see them. They're just a whiz that goes by you in the backyard. They have feet so tiny that they cannot even walk on a branch. They can't walk on branches. And yet, hummingbirds make a journey every year from Minnesota, 3,000 kilometers to Central America. And then they come back. That means that they're flying over every state in the Union, past Texas, and they're flying 1,000 kilometers over the Gulf of Mexico to South America. And then they go to Central America, because why not? How does this happen? The scientific community actually has a hard time explaining how in the world these tiny little creatures can do this. How do they do it? I'll tell you how they do it. They do it because they don't go on the journey alone. And the very nature of all the other hummingbirds that come in together with them and join the flock, the network of values-based people that look you in the eye for more than 2 seconds, that don't look over you and shake someone else's hand, those kind of people, they get to tell their own journey through the vision of what you created. And the very lift of the other birds is exactly what gets you all the way down there and all the way back. My point of view and my final closing comments are this. If you were to sit down and have a glass of nectar with a hummingbird, and he's sitting right across the table, and you say to him, how in the world did you lead this major journey? What do you think the hummingbird would say to you? I can tell you what I believe 100% they would say, I didn't. I didn't lead the journey. If it weren't for the people that came along the journey with me and gave me the complete pleasure and blessing of just being amongst them, we never would have made it anywhere in the first place. So my challenge to you is you all have unique, amazing voices. Hierarchy doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. Your background doesn't matter, except that it's going to make the journey richer if you'll be safe enough to bring it into the journey. And it's a tough old world out there. And my mission is to inspire every single one of you in this room to find your passion and to lead your journey as an entrepreneur inside of a company or outside of a company, and bring along with you as many people as you can to change this world for the better. Because I think we can do it. Does anyone else think we can do it?